Hello everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations and your assignment today. So today's video, I want to talk to you about Neptune and Jupiter, and particularly the conjunction that is going to be taking place in Pisces. And so I thought it would be a good idea to flush out some of my ideas, kind of share some of my thoughts and reflections on this conjunction, and maybe look at the effects that are going to take place for us. Like, what is the effect that it's going to happen on the collective, and what is the potential that you as an individual can actually get out of this transit, So let's begin with looking at the Neptune and Jupiter archetype from an EA lens. Okay, so Neptune, if we had to see it reflect itself in nature, is the phenomena of erosion, okay? Things that are eroding or decaying. And there are many other ways that we can see Neptune reflected. Like, another analogy that I like to use is that you're just floating in the ocean, right? You got a canoe, you've got these oars, you're on the ocean, there's no land at sight, and your sense of direction is deeply disturbed because there's nothing to, in a sense, attach to, because everything ultimately is, in this context, like this absence of Saturn, this absence of grounding, this absence of direction. So in going back to erosion and decay, when Neptune transits take place in our lives, essentially what is occurring is that whatever psychological and emotional association you have to your experience of life and the meaning that is associated with it, Neptune comes along and it erodes that. So think of the footprints that you can make on the beach, and then the water comes along, and after the 2 times that it's come on, it erases your footprints. That's actually the phenomena of Neptune. So when we go through these transits, or when we have a transit where other planets are connecting to Neptune, you can pretty much know that there is going to be an erasing or an evaporation, a decaying, an erosion of whatever it is that is structured in that place, whatever we build, whatever we emotionally and psychologically assign as meaning. Okay? So in terms of the floating canoe experience and being disorientated and lost, the essence of Neptune invokes a deep spiritual awakening experience within a person. It's actually connected to the pineal gland, as well as certain chemicals that are secreted when we have a transcendental experience. So what we're doing here in Neptune is that it is eroding the definitions or boundaries, and it is creating, in a sense, a connection to the infinite field. Okay, so you can see how this is occurring within the context of human societal structure. Neptune is moving through Pisces simultaneously when Pluto is in Capricorn, the archetype of the structure, and you can see that there is a decay of societal structure. Okay, it's clearly evident. Now, Jupiter comes along, and what Jupiter does is it does 2 main functions within the context of the year. It helps us understand a point of view that everything in creation has. So an orientation. Okay, Jupiter's the umbrella cosmology to which me, you, and everybody else that is on this planet will form, so that there is a sense of perspective that you have of your reality. So Jupiter is the relationship that we have to the phenomena of reality, and primarily the scope to which you see it within. Yeah. So expansion, like expanding your horizons, would be a Jupiter experience, right? We allow for our perspective to become expanded with Jupiter. Yeah. All right. So in a sense, it also correlates to, at a societal level, if you think about a society, right, or a group of people, collection of people, it reflects the way that we individually will have our own truth, like our own perspective on something, but then there is a shared common agreement within a collective of what are the rights and wrongs. At a more egocentric structure, you would think about the moral compass that a person runs their sense of reality through. And so the moral compass of a society, the moral landscape of a society, right? And the do's and don'ts. So what we have here is very clearly, when we look at Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces, you can start to put these things together. Okay, so what is the impact that Jupiter and Neptune can have on us individually and collectively as this conjunction takes place? So the first thing to note is that when a conjunction takes place, what you are looking at here is essentially the closure or culmination, like the ending of an entire cycle. So we have a flurry of deep electromagnetic sensations that will move through the nervous system, that will then, through your cognition, through the way that you perceive reality, right? It will flurry through to that, and you'll have images or sensations or memories of prior experiences that are specifically related to these two archetypes. Okay, so it's kind of like a review process that takes place. Okay, whenever there's a conjunction that happens, and primarily when it's a closing conjunction, it's called a balsamic phase, right? Just before we have a new moon, there's a closing phase. The moon is applying to the sun. Okay, so closing. So we go through this flurry of like all of the perspectives, pretty much with us. And it can be a very disorientating experience because there's so much information flooding the system that is available to us. And there's nothing really that you can do about it. There isn't any intention, in my view at least. It is ultimately just kind of a closing cycle. And we get to feel a sense of completion or agedness that would come along with our ways of relating to the planet. So in this case, it's Jupiter-Neptune, which I'll go through. So when a conjunction takes place, you've got these aligning planets. When the conjunction actually does take place, which according to the information that I have so far, it's the 12th of April, 2022. When this conjunction takes place, then there will be a seeding. Okay, two planets align and there's a seeding that essentially begins a new cycle. So the impact that this will have individually for us is that this is a great opportunity to begin looking at three major things. And I wrote down the notes over here, which are loss of identity, okay, which I want to explore, healing wounds related to past traumas, okay, that then manifest as behaviorisms like addiction and disassociation, okay, and then to clear out any lingering states of emptiness that you feel within inside of yourself. So Neptune will come along and help you erase these, or give the opportunity to eventually let go of certain states of or patternings within you that you know are not healthy for you, that are corrosive, that don't bring life force, that don't feel like this is where you feel rejuvenated. So it's an attempt to cut certain behaviorisms, particularly emotional attachments to certain behaviorisms that are coping mechanisms. Okay? This is a really, really profound time to begin looking at and analyzing emotional patterns of disconnect, disassociation, and, like I said, addiction. Okay? Why? Because just like Dr. Gabor Maté talks about in his work and what he's putting across, if you haven't looked at his work, I highly encourage you to go after this video and check out and research Dr. Gabor Maté. And it's absolutely a no-brainer for me that when we carry emotional complexes within us, right, emotional wounds that are unresolved, deep pains, traumas, etc., we develop coping mechanisms that allow us to soothe from the intensity of the emotion, like to regulate ourselves, right? And if we are unable to work through those traumas, especially when they're early, like childhood dynamics, then these coping mechanisms become behaviorisms that we can't break. And so this is a really profound time in which we can look at these emotional dynamics, these wounds, and recognize the patterning that emerges out of them. Okay? The emergent pattern will probably look like some form of disconnect, numbing out, right? Disassociation. And this is here where you can choose to continue that process, fine. Or you can choose to begin to look at what are those underlying dynamics because of the South Node in Scorpio at the moment, and recognize how you can, North Node in Taurus, begin to look at certain ways that you can help yourself move through some of these traumas that we may carry. Of course, depending on the nature of the trauma is obviously relative to how much you yourself can do with it. But this is a really profound time and opportunity to look at and understand underlying emotional patterns that then create patterns of addiction. Okay, right? And so then the Jupiter part over here really magnifies and say, have you really explored this? So, and that obviously is to varying degrees. What I mean by that, when I say to varying degrees, is the ability to recognize, firstly, oh, this is a behavior that I seem to consistently go to when feeling emotionally dysregulated. And then the question that you want to ask yourself is, how is this serving me? Okay, how am I benefiting from being spaced out? Or how am I benefiting from not recognizing this pattern that emotionally disconnects me from my environment? And then the thing that actually comes out of it is a little message that says, oh, I'm stuck, or oh, I'm helpless, or this is something that is outside of my control. These are the types of messaging that come along with behaviorisms that reinforce our helplessness or reinforce a state of feeling unable to reach out and say, hey, I'm actually struggling with this, or hey, this is really painful and I don't know what to do. Does this make sense? This is kind of the scope right now. If we were to take it on an individual level, the impact that can be had. Like there's a tremendous amount of healing that is available for us right now. Okay, so in terms of the context of our collective, of course, Jupiter is an archetype that loves to grow things, right? Expand. And Neptune is very much about, is that real? So it's very important right now to really do your due diligence on everything that it is that you are interacting with. Like really checking in and saying, is that true for me? Is this real for me? In many cases, I would say that this is a profound opportunity to look at how your own intuitive sense of things takes priority over messages that you receive from the outside world that give an impression of something, but are really there to create a picture or to illustrate something, misdirection. You understand what I mean? So with Jupiter Neptune, if you have this transit, if you have this this transit individually for yourself, or if you have this natally in your astrology chart, this is the space that it's very easy to see a mirage, and to then go towards that mirage, and then discover that it was imagination or an hallucination, or something appears one way but is actually something else. So disenchantedness, right? The ability to experience something in an idealistic way, and then it not appear to be that. So be mindful right now, especially with the current kind of global structure at the moment. There's a tremendous amount of the word is inflation, Jupiter Neptune, right? Everything skyrockets. It creates a flooding experience. Neptune is about powerlessness, the experience of being flooded, right? Emptiness. Where am I supposed to go? How is this going to work? I have no choice. And so this aspect of how this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction is going to impact the collective is two ways. You're going to see a progressive leaning in towards states of apathy, meaninglessness, hopelessness, a feeling of can't do anything about it. And then you're also going to see on the other side, which is what I'm advocating for mostly in this chart conversation, is to look at the underlying patterns that are emotionally with you and to see where those patterns lead you into states of helplessness, states of feeling of apathy, states of feeling of drifting, and to look at those disassociation patterns as protection mechanisms for underlying traumas or underlying feelings of abandonment, betrayal, or hurt that you carry. That pain needs to come out. This is a time where the pain that you have needs and must be cleared out. Okay? And of course, this is an idealistic dream of mine. I have Neptune in the 11th house, which is about kind of the idea of saving humanity. But my message here today is to really recognize this time as an opportunity to turn inward in this process and recognize, just like Neo does in Matrix 3, where his eyes get burnt. And he can only use his internal guidance system to try to make sense of the things that are emerging in his life. Because right now it can be very difficult to try to make sense of anything externally, because there's so much confusion and doubt around what is actually real versus a shining little coin that says, come over here. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so that's where I think I'm going to leave it off today. I really hope that this video gave you something to think about. My advice to you and to me is, if you do take on or engage in this idea of helping yourself recognize patterns of addiction or patterns of disassociation or patterns of avoidance, or where they create feelings like deeper subconscious feelings of apathy and stuff like that, if you are interested in wanting to heal those things, the internet is your friend. And there are tremendous amounts of YouTube videos where people help process these things. There's lots of books that you can check out. I can put in the description to a link that I like to use, which is by the name of Pete Walker. He has tremendous work on these things, including one book that's called The Calming of the Storm, the Eye of the Storm kind of thing. That's not what the book is called, but you'll see it there. I highly recommend that one. So I'll leave that with you. If this video was valuable to you, if you felt that this was something that resonated, please let me know in the comment section. I like to hear feedback from my community. Of course, as always, there's always those that are listening and watching, and I deeply appreciate you a lot. If you thought this video was something that you want to share with people, please do. Let the algorithm know that this is something that you like. And if you are new to this channel, subscribe as well. Okay? All right. Last one thing that I want to also share is, again, if for those of you that are really serious about taking transformation to a different level, you want to participate in a community-oriented space where you get attention by myself and Jen, and we specifically help and guide you through a process of deep psychological and emotional transformation. You learn the ins and outs of your human design, as well as your astrology chart. You go through a process of really being able to be supported by us. Then we are opening up the doors for a 15-minute free call where we want to see if there's an opportunity to, check in with your needs and see if we can potentially help you with that, okay? So if you are interested in wanting to work in a more deeper way with us and to explore more of the astrology and human design and all of these things I've spoken about, in the description is a link. You check that out, book a call with us. It's loads of fun because we get to, even in that call, even if there's not an ability to help you, we can still guide you in a direction that will be supportive, okay? All right, my friends, until another video, thank you very much for your time and attention. Take care. Bye-bye.